To order. Welcome to our November 19th Haddonfield Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Mike, can you call roll?
Mr. Benford. Ms. Crooked.
Here.
Ms. Hogue.
Here.
Ms. Hogarth.
Here.
Ms. Kudner.
Here.
Ms. Paoli.
Here.
Mr. Vecchio.
Here.
Vice President Seidel.
Here.
President Sangillo.
Here. Let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike, would you read us the statement concerning open public meetings?
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Superintendent of Schools in the following manner. On January 10th, 2020, notice of this meeting was posted on the interior of the school administration offices, 1 Lincoln Ave, Haddonfield. Written notice was submitted and filed with the Haddonfield Borough Clerk, and notices were faxed to the Courier Post and mailed to the Retrospect newspaper.
Thank you, Mike. We have Dan Cavan on joining us from Google Meet. He's going to give us the student representatives report. Dan, take us away.
Sure, thank you. So we just started the second marking period at the school, and as I'm sure everyone knows, we've transitioned to all virtual instruction. One thing that I discussed with Ms. McHale in our meeting was that this transition was definitely in consideration of safety measures, but also just because of the amount of students that were quarantining and that we're making the decision to be all virtual as well. It's also only 7 periods or 7 school days that students will not be in school. So we're really hoping to get back as soon as possible. And I think as far as students go, this was very much so a wake-up call and a reminder to remain diligent. And if students weren't being diligent, to be more diligent regarding safety measures. We're still trying to partake in certain events online, like Spirit Week is currently happening online, even though other events like certain athletics and extracurriculars did have to be paused. But students are a little stressed, but we all understand why we're virtual and we want to get back as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Cavan. Any questions for Mr. Cavan while we have him? All right, thank you, sir. Well,
Thanks, Danny.
thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Dr. Brill, we have a ruler presentation for you.
We do. So with me, I have Dr. Kristen Loren, who is one of our school psychologists here in Haddonfield, and she is my de facto co-chairperson for the school district's SEL strategic initiative. As many of you know, and you've heard me speak about this on several occasions, we are currently using an evidence-based social emotional learning framework in our school district. That framework is called RULER. RULER is an acronym that stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. Now, in order to achieve those goals or those ideals, there are 4 RULER tools of emotional intelligence. The one we're going to talk about tonight is the RULER Charter. The charter is designed to build and sustain a positive climate. It represents agreed upon norms for how all staff members want to feel, as well as what needs to happen or change for those feelings to be consistently present. Now, also, if you've heard me talk about on several occasions, we have started our focus with our faculty and staff. To this point, all of our school faculties in each of our buildings has developed their own school charter. When I was director of special education, we developed a charter for the child study team. And the idea is that we, as the adults, develop a staff charter before introducing it to students so that adults can experience the process and benefits. So I had you do some homework prior to this meeting to jumpstart this process. It usually takes about an hour. We're going to do it in about 15 minutes, if that. And so I asked Dr. Loren to do all the heavy lifting because she is actually the expert here in the field. She has analyzed the results that you have put forward so far when we asked the 2 basic questions. how do you feel when you were doing your work in your capacity as a Board of Education member? And how do you want to feel? And then you provided some actions that would help you achieve these ideals. So the idea is, at the end of this period, we're gonna have at least a draft of a charter. It's a living document that we should always refer to when we come together as a group and work as a board. And it reminds us of our ideals and how we work and interact with each other. So with that, Dr. Loren, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right, very good. So emotions feel sort of vague at times, right? But I'm gonna encourage you to think of what we're talking about, the tools, as brain hygiene. Just like you have dental hygiene, you brush your teeth, you floss, you do all of those things, but you don't almost feel like doing it. You're tired, you just want to crash in the sofa and fall asleep. So when I'm asking you to do emotional brain hygiene, it's sometimes the same thing. It feels like somewhat of effort, but after you do it, that action, you tend to feel better, and over time, it really promotes health. Just like if you continue to brush your teeth, you feel better right after, and over time, you're going to be healthy. It's the same thing with this. And what I love about Ruler, that it's simple and action-oriented. So even if you didn't get a chance to go through the modules, don't worry. This is simple and just going to take you through some actions. So first, so we're asking you, how do you feel? When you think about feelings and emotions, start to reflect on it. Can be sort of hard. Start to think, even right now, think about how you feel. And start to reflect in terms of your physiology. You have different kind of physiological energy, from low, like I'm about to fall asleep right now, to high, I'm so excited to hear this presentation, I'm jumping out of my seat, type of energy, or irritated, like let's move on, this is a real business, whatever it might be. So that is physiological energy, always check in on that. And then you have the pleasantness, like this is fantastic, I love this, versus like, I am done, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. So within that, and you may have seen this already, we asked you to kind of pick words and names for a vocabulary for how do you feel. And some of the feeling words that we got were, I want to feel influential, relevant, good. It depends. It's just really hard to pick one feeling. And especially I think right now there's so many feelings. I feel proud at times, I feel frustrated, upset, challenged. So that is, and then it kind of comes to, how do you want to feel? And some of the responses were, I want to feel heard. I want to feel good when I come to the meetings. I want to feel respected, appreciated, valued, feel like I'm playing an important role, contributing and valued, thoughtful, collaborative. I mean, going through some of the responses too, a lot of them were actions, not necessarily feeling words, and kind of just reminded me, I think in general, it's hard to pick the exact feeling word. And what you will see when you go through the training is like really being specific about how you feel truly matters in terms of being able to regulate and relate to those emotions. For example, the difference between anxious and overwhelmed, they both have a lot of physiological stress in them, but what intervention you do is very different. If you're very anxious, you may want to focus on a lot of breathing techniques, physiologically calm down, your thought process. If you're overwhelmed, you just need to take things off your plate because you're doing too much. So it really, really matters, but I think in general, it's really hard for us to pick. So that is a long lesson, but picking the exact feeling becomes really, really important. After going through all the themes or your responses, I think some of the emotions or the feelings that kind of boil down to feeling appreciated and feeling respected. So we're gonna make those two feeling words the beginning of your charter. And then the next step is thinking about, now, what do we do? What are the actions that equals, that we show that we appreciate someone, we even appreciate ourselves? What are actions we do when we show respect for others and ourselves? And so this is where I'm going to get some interaction from you to get some feedback. And when you think about that, like, what does it look like to feel appreciated and respected? Just imagine that you're trying to also teach your children. Many times when it comes to these emotions and these lessons, it's so much easier to teach to others versus like, how does it really apply to me? The same thing when we try to evoke compassion, which is a really important feeling. It is really easy to evoke compassionate feelings for our children, loved ones, our pets, but hard to direct it towards others. And same thing here. So when you look at, the feeling to feel appreciated and respected, if you were to teach this and model this for your children and students, what would that look like? So let's go ahead and maybe look at the first feeling, appreciated. To feel appreciated, first just hear the word and kind of get a sense what triggers inside you, how you feel even when you hear the word appreciated. And now, what are some things, actions that go along with that you can do to show that you appreciate others and even appreciate yourself? What are some of your thoughts? I picked up some examples down there, but what comes to your mind when you feel appreciated?
I don't separate appreciated and respect too much, right?
Okay.
I think they kind of go hand in hand. And the hand is, I can only show you respect. I can't give you respect. You have to kind of, I can appreciate you, but I don't know if that's how you're going to take it. So there's the difference between what you can control over your action,
Okay.
but that's separate from how you can internalize someone else's action. So, and that's what I'm saying, kind of like respect and appreciation. Respect is something you can show somebody, but appreciation is more of a recognition of somebody else showing you respect, kind of.
So if you were to show someone respect, what are some examples of that?
Let them finish your sentence. Not talk over them.
Okay.
Stay off your phone.
Yeah.
Recognize a point of view even if it doesn't agree with yours.
Uh-huh.
Eye contact. Focusing on the person speaking.
Yeah.
I would say on Linda's, actively recognize
Mhm.
the understanding, right? Let's say to them
Mhm.
that so that you can demonstrate that you're listening and hearing.
Yeah. Maybe like reflecting back
Yeah.
on someone
Yeah.
speak,
Mhm.
so you truly convey that you understand and heard what he said. Okay. So it's a lot about just pausing, right? And making sure that every person is truly heard and feel heard.
Calls people back when you have a concern that the other person will call you back.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Well, we're talking about respected.
Yeah.
So if you call someone with an issue that person, if they don't take the call, will call you back to hear your concern.
Okay.
Responsive.
Response.
Not just be silent and ignore and
Right.
somebody goes away. Okay. All right. What about appreciated? I still think there's a little bit of a difference that might be worth looking into.
I think what Dave was trying to say, and I kind of agree with him,
Yeah.
is to feel appreciated. You can appreciate someone else, but
Uh-huh.
to feel appreciated is nothing that you can control on your own. It's something that's given to you from someone else.
Okay.
I'll give an example, the exercise, the yes and exercise. If somebody can give you the respect to hear you, but appreciation comes if they then build off of that, or not necessarily agree with you, but engage enough. Like respect is more of a behavior and appreciation is more of a connection.
Okay. But it's still, how is that connected to action? What was okay? So to appreciate someone, what are some concrete actions that we each can do and take to show that we appreciate someone?
Be prepared to come here and discuss issues. I personally appreciate everyone who comes prepared.
Okay,
Or recognize the contribution to a discussion or work that they've done in a committee or any work that's been
and
done.
but how do you recognize that? What is the actual actions of that person? So we can be thinking it in our
Say thank
head,
you.
but how do you show it?
Say thank you.
Yeah.
Or I appreciated that email, or I appreciated that, receiving that information.
Yeah.
Right, just
Or
gratitude.
appreciating each other's time by staying on task and focusing our contributions to the discussion.
I think kind of to counter Linda's suggestion, and one of the places where I see it working in a collaborative group is, I think there is I think you have to acknowledge to yourself that you're appreciated, because sometimes I think there's a confusion between appreciated and agreed with. So if you're heard and understood, but don't necessarily think that was the direction you should go in, and that's the answer, it's easy to fall into, well, they don't appreciate my point of view because they don't agree with it. And that's not, I mean, and that may not be the person's who put the time in and energy in to understand the point of view. They may be appreciative of your point of view, and it can help them shift the way they view other things, but don't have to agree. And if that person feels rejected just because you didn't agree with how they felt on that one topic, it's kind of on that. It's kind of on the person who wasn't agreed with. So, do you know what I'm saying? So I think there is some personal responsibility.
Maybe appreciating that our role here is not a social role. Like, I think it becomes important to know our job as much as we like, or, I think we all like each other, but our job is not to like each other. Like, we do disagree, and maybe appreciate that everyone comes from a different point of view, and that is not personal. It's just how we all take our responsibility very seriously.
Yeah.
So I would think on that is like, so it needs to be a two-way street. We can't take things too personal when someone disagrees with us, because it's not about our personal relationship, it's completely separate.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Linda, but I didn't agree with what you said.
And then one theme that were in the comments too was you chose to do this incredible important volunteer job because you want to make a huge difference. You want to add value to the community. And I wonder too, and I think it is actually important when it comes to appreciating, to pause and appreciate your own action. I think we leave ourselves very vulnerable if we're just waiting for others to appreciate us. And it's almost like to focus in on for ourselves, like what are the small things, because of big end goals that you're all working towards, and it's incredibly complicated to see like, yes, we got that end goal. But what is, the many steps that you all are working on each and every day to work towards that huge end goal? I think we as people, we also need to remind ourselves to pause and focus in on the small steps and not just feel satisfied when we come like the very, very end goal and big, because it's so complicated. But each and every day, all of you are doing something to contribute towards this big project. So to kind of train ourselves to pause and acknowledge that. And yes, to verbally acknowledge to others, like verbally say it in a text, that was great, I heard you. But also stop them and give ourselves some acknowledgement and appreciation, which is not easy for us to do, but it's incredibly healthy.
And you have to think of the power of this, right? We're talking about two feeling words, and there are different interpretations, because we don't often really reflect on our emotions. We're quick to judge our emotions, but we're not quick really to reflect and understand how we are emoting those things and how people are interpreting them. For example, we just spent a few minutes talking about appreciation, but we weren't able to really come up with a concrete action of what that really would look like. To your point, Adam, when you talk about dealing with an idea that you may not agree with, one of the actions that can go along with that is active listening, rephrasing what that person said. Well, here's what I hear. Here is what I heard you say. Is that accurate? I don't agree with it, but blah blah blah. So there are really concrete actions that can go along with it. And what Dr. Loren was pointing to here is one of the other rule and tools of emotional intelligence. This is the mood meter. And when you begin to look at this, you begin to understand the variety of emotions that go along with our everyday lives. And the ability to recognize, express, and label those emotions is really critical to developing emotional intelligence. You know, one of the phrases in the literature is you have to name it to tame it. So once you're able to accurately express how you are feeling in any given moment, you raise the likelihood that you're going to be able to regulate those emotions. That's a tool for another day. I want you to see how this is all interconnected.
And one reason why the charter is powerful, because we all can regulate within ourselves, but we are social beings. We are in groups, and we co-regulate. And within a classroom, this is hugely important because emotions are energies. You feel it. You have the expression, you catch us think you can cut through it. There's a reason for that. You feel the energy. So when the charter point of it is just to bring it to the awareness. And everybody can make certain choices each and every day to contribute to something.
Kristen?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm on speaker here. I'd love to contribute to the, in order to feel appreciated, we will intentionally speak positively of other board members. I think we think positively of each other, but I think when we make, when we intentionally, right, even in subcommittees or whatever, try to come up with positive things to say about each other, it's a clear demonstration that we appreciate each other even when we disagree. And even if we, for lack of a better term, talk nice about each other behind each other's backs, if I hear someone talking nice about person B, even if they're not in the room, it creates an atmosphere where you can say, this is a board that appreciates each other. So it's a better atmosphere is created.
Yeah, no, that's a great tool, and based on the research, something to keep in mind too, to go along with that, we know positive change, there's a magical ratio, 4-to-1, 4 positive action statements to 1 negative. And it really, really drives change. So yeah, just concretely say, send a text, send a group email, thank you. Just point to some concrete example, and well, it goes a long way. But I think as humans, we to negative thoughts and emotions and reactions comes very automatic. It's just how we are wired. We have a negativity bias, but positive, it takes some effort to do that. But over time, all of this efforts tune into the emotions, and positive over time builds emotional resiliency. So it's about creating little moments, supporting each other while doing it.
So here's, unless anyone has any questions for Dr. Loren, what we're going to do, because we want to be mindful that we are in a public session here, and this is something that could carry on for a while. Based on this discussion, based on the responses you've already provided, Dr. Loren and I will put together a draft of a charter based on these 2 words, appreciated and respected. And this is something we'll revisit at a future meeting to finish, finalize, and revisit and have further discussion on.
You know, I can appreciate why you said it takes an hour.
I do have a question.
Thank you.
Where have you had these meetings with, I'm assuming with staff and admin? The ruler, I've seen
Yeah.
you've approved to have this. How are you implementing this in the district?
So
What does it look like?
So for the charters that were established, each of our principals during a faculty gathering developed their school charters. With the child study team, when we did it in last spring, we did it at a department meeting. And then what the teachers do, what the principals do with their staff on a routine basis. For example, prior to a faculty meeting, they will revisit their charter. As a reminder of this is how we interact with each other, these are the things that we value, and the charter is posted throughout the school. So the idea is the more this becomes normalized in the school district, the more the adults become familiar and see the value of it, they will then begin to do classroom charters with their own students.
And again, if you can just kind of think of one action that you can do from the charter, that is great. So for me, I really try on a weekly basis, make a point of, I gotta send a compliment to someone. And I know that Chuck and Gina have been CC'd on several of my emails where like, certain meetings are great or good feedback, and I wanna share that with the teachers. So that is one of my things that I try to do on a weekly basis. So even if it's just one thing that you can do from this, great. It's not meant to be complicated. Again, it's brain hygiene, just like your dental hygiene.
And the more this becomes a norm, the more we all hold each other accountable to that charter. Because there are times inevitably where you may stray for that. But when it becomes a shared value and when it's something that is consistently revisited, it's like, hey, we're straying away from our charter here. These are the values and norms to which we agree. So it can become a very powerful tool.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's something that we traditionally would have done during we call them retreats. And we have board meetings where we spend time working on board culture, board goals, that kind of thing. I think we should try to retake it up, maybe do it further or spend more time on it. Because those are public meetings too, but I'm going to guess that you didn't have charter building ruler sessions on YouTube with anybody else in the district.
Yeah, but the thing is too, right, how do you infuse it into your everyday life?
Yeah.
Keep it simple, and if you remind yourself, like, just one thing for this week, this month, keep it simple so it becomes a part of your daily life. That is when it becomes really powerful.
And reminding it in the beginning, having it at the beginning of our meetings, every other meeting, just to say, hey, remember what we discussed. Fantastic. Glad to hear that we're doing it.
One thing, I mean, it's great for us to do as a board, but when I work through some of those modules that the teachers are looking at, it's so funny because I realized something that should just be, it's common knowledge. I mean, we all have bad days, right? So I had a bad day, got up late, I had a headache, and in the olden days when I drove my car and went to work, then, I was away from my family, I had time to, normalize and come back in place. And then, you think of teachers as, well, that's their job. They are with their kids, but they too have bad days. And for them to be looking at that and being able to label, you know what, right now I'm having a bad day and this is going to affect what's happening in my classroom. I just thought that was really powerful, that's the thing that your teachers are looking at.
And the most powerful aspect of that scenario you just said is to help empower adults to recognize how they're feeling. It's, SEL is not about everyone trying to be in a good mood or everyone being super friendly with one. We're being happy all the time because that is unrealistic and it's unhealthy. But when adults, particularly teachers, this is certainly an integral part of what they do, if they can recognize that they are feeling frustrated or anxious, that increases the likelihood that you're going to be able to regulate that emotion and move it into a different place. One of my, Dina O'Connor, one of our speech language therapists, I had this conversation with her this morning. She used the analogy with her teachers with whom she works, that you're like a Wi-Fi router, and you give off a signal to your students. And the more you are keenly aware about that signal that you are giving off, the more likely it's going to be a stronger signal for your students in a positive way. I thought that was pretty impactful. Thank you, Dr. Lorenz.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I can't stop joking around. These things, like, what if you had a bad day? Well, you have a bad year.
Just recognize it.
Yeah,
Okay?
let's recognize the year.
Well, I think if you recognize, you put more effort into the opposite. But you have to know it in the first place.
That's the most challenging part.
Thank you, Gino. Thank you, Dr. Lorenz, for coming in to do that with us. All right, we're going to move to board member committee reports. David, curriculum met?
Yeah, curriculum met November 10th. Next meeting is December 1st. As I said previously, December 1st is the last one I'll be chairing. We discussed, we kind of went through a different type of exercise where we took the school levels, first elementary, then middle school, then high school. And we did that because there's specific issues in each one that we're trying to tackle. So in elementary school, we talked about how the professional development will be focused on ST math and how we could serve the needs of the teachers making the transition into hybrid and still keep on our math trajectory that we've identified as wanting. And then in the middle school, we were provided an update on the gifted and talented program and how the enrichment periods would be worked in, I guess now in the second market period that we're in. So we just wanted an idea of, it was a little late to get off the ground from, we couldn't test in the summer. So, the testing happened after school started. So it was just late how we were going to address that. And then we talked about an addition to the curriculum that we kind of are still going to talk about. And that's a program that a teacher had come to the district with and to Dr. Murray to try to work in, and we're still trying to figure out how that can be worked in. We haven't heard enough yet. So that's the best way to put it, right? And then at the high school, we talked about how math and science assessment collaboration should occur, and how other teachers are approaching not only assessment, but academic honesty. It's easy to cheat online, right? And different strategies to change the way you will assess some proficiencies. It's really difficult. I think this is just, I'm going off script a little. In the younger grades, when you have an assessment that's not really grade-based, but it's mastery-based, the way that the younger grades do, that hasn't translated to the higher grades. So mastery is, you still need to earn the grade, right? And so you got a lot of pressures around that. Add in, you don't have the peer pressure so much of everybody being in a room at the same time to kind of have that collective honesty. So it's just different strategies on, I guess, almost like this ruler exercise, recognizing the temptation and then developing ways to not be tempted. So we talked about that in how assessments, especially in the math and science realm, where there are right answers, and wrong answers. And then as a district, we just got a review of how the new teacher program went and how it was delivered, how they didn't work it all in. And that was really interesting. We talked about a couple committees. The social studies committee is one we directly kind of focused on because there's an offer to work with the Penn Graduate School of Education Council to evaluate what they call a problem of practice. They want to see how we evaluate as a committee the social studies curriculum because they want to study how schools tackle the problem. We're going to be doing our audit of social studies anyway. It just seemed like it's just a good marriage between the two. And then just a little bit of talking about how equity across the district in allocating some spend in technology. Promethean boards were one that did we get a grant for that, Chuck? Or
No, they were on sale.
Oh, they were on sale. So we bought more than we had planned because they were on sale. But then, how do you equitably distribute it across the district and where it made the most buck? I personally said, why? It's nice that we have a Promethean board. It could just be a screen. But Ms. McHale said, actually, this is a good space for social distancing and teaching at the same time. So that made me feel better. And then the rest you could just read. They're the big highlights.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David?
I have one question with regard to assessments, and I know we talked about this at some point last year, and wondering if it's still an active conversation. But I know that we talked about how important it is that when assessments are made, that it's really not an assessment about getting a grade, but it's about a level of understanding. And if the assessment is not given back to the kids for a long period of time and they don't understand what it is that they got wrong, then they're not learning. So the whole purpose of the assessment is to assess what they don't know and for them to learn what they do. And that's still an active conversation.
Yes, it is. That's a big part of what a lot of the stuff Dr. Murray's taking a look at. And, because you're right. If I don't know what I got wrong, I can't grow off of that information. So that's an ongoing I think it's been ongoing in education, for long as been education, it always will be, but it's certainly something we're looking at, yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, Linda. I gotta second that point, Chuck, that my kids have sometimes had struggles getting feedback on what was wrong. So, and the response was, people said that students are too stressed out about grades, so don't worry about it. And I'm like, but how do you know? How can you improve what you got wrong if you don't know?
Yeah, I think the critical thing is using for like part of the growth mindset being it's okay to get it wrong, but you have to know how you can then grow, and giving them that immediate feedback, you are more likely to grow. And of course, immediate feedback within a range. But I agree. I mean, that's, if they're to grow, they're going to need that responsive feedback, just like we're all kind of talking about.
All right. Susan, did you do the financial facilities update last week?
We had a meeting on Monday.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep, just 3 days ago. It's actually a fairly quick meeting. There's a few topics of note that one of them is on the agenda tonight, that we're going to be approving the contract for, what is it called? It's for the COPS grants. Our RFP is receiving it. It's for the district-wide emergency notification system. And that's the one where it was a 75%, 25% split. So that's on the agenda to approve tonight. And this is the same company that did the cameras. So and it's a no bid contract because they're one of the state purchasing agreements. So that's on the agenda tonight. Also for grants that the Department of Education, the security and water infrastructure grants are finally out there. The water infrastructure is due tomorrow, and the security grant the next month in December. And for the water infrastructure, any fixture that had a lead level in it, even though if it was well below the harmful rates, which ours were, you can apply to have that fixture replaced. So we'll I believe Mike has already gotten all those applications together that they're in. For the security grant, we're doing the shatter-free film for the first floor windows, but we have $153,000 allocated to us. There's no local share on this. It's 100%. So to fill in the rest of the money, that we're filling it out with door access controls, that we have an extra to do 6 to 8 more doors. I think a few of them are going to be on the rear of Tatum. In other news of money coming in versus going out, we were willed a scholarship for $50,000. It has some very specific restraints on it. So we're going to go through, look at that, and then that'll probably go to committee to develop it and decide how we're distributing that. We're advertising for Labor Council, that those proposals are due December 2nd. We are entering our favorite time of year, budget time. And the last thing that we talked about was the Municipal Alliance, about our stipend agreement, which needs some, with the borough, which needs a little more exploration. And that was it. That was it for finance and facilities. Any questions?
Yeah, questions for Susan?
I have a question for Susan and for academic oversight. I just want to, I might have missed it, but if they're not out yet, will we be getting meeting minutes?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just didn't have time to do them this week. I'll try and put something together. I'm getting
no apologies at all. I've been taking
Yeah.
notes, and it's nice to glance at it printed, but no apologies needed. Thank you.
And curriculum committee were distributed last week at the superintendent's update, the Friday update that we received in the academic section.
I got it. So they're not separate. Just if I read it there, I got it all.
No, it's not fair. It's not fair to David. Dr. Murray writes the.
Oh, no, that's what I was gonna say. No, and that's why they're in the superintendent update, because Dr. Murray takes the minutes for curriculum committee.
I'm really, the goal is to tease the who would be taking minutes.
Oh,
Finance
no,
facility.
no, I completely appreciate it.
Catalano.
Yeah, I know Mike usually captures most of finance. Usually we have his comments before we meet and talk. So.
And he's not busy, Susan, he has plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Take these minutes.
Well, it's really interesting method that Dr. Murray uses because her agenda becomes the minutes.
Yeah.
As she fills them in with the discussions. So it's an outline-based approach that she takes to the minute, to the notes of a meeting, because these are all living documents and we go back and just build, they constantly get built upon. So it's an interesting way to take notes.
I feel like appreciated.
I should have just left well enough alone. All right. Any other questions for Susan? No. Lynn, you gave an update and we're approving a bunch of policies from last week. Jamie put out, let's thank Jamie and I put out a nice communication. We this week put out a joint communication between the Board of Ed and the commissioners of the, just encouraging safe habits for COVID. But Jamie, I'll let you.
You just said it.
Well,
I'm feeling appreciated.
I wanted to thank you because you took the time to write it.
Yeah,
You can
so-
thank yourself now.
He reframed it
Yeah.
and gave it back to you as an answer.
Communications Committee did a joint statement with the Board of Commissioners and about the pandemic, and just our hope is that everyone follows the governor's orders and CDC guidelines so that we can keep the schools and businesses open. And hopefully you saw it, we did pretty much disperse it in every possible venue. So we just really wanted to remind people to be cognizant of the CDC guidelines as we go into the holidays. Our hope is to maintain businesses being open and schools being open. So we really need to be careful outside of these areas so that we can still continue business as usual in other areas.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for me? Tom?
It was an excellent letter, by the way.
Oh,
It
thank
really
you.
was.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Colleen Bezich because she worked closely with me about that. And I know that she was, working on her own. So I appreciate that, Colleen.
Tom, negotiations okay?
Still in process, continuing to have conversations with the HEA and hopefully more news in December.
Okay. Dina, do you have any report for us?
Maybe not.
Mr. Kraus?
Certainly.
All right, my report for this board meeting, just cover some general topics here. As we're all well aware, the high school went full virtual starting Monday of this week, excuse me, it's been a very long week. And I put the explanation out, but just to talk through kind of where we came from, because it happened quickly. As I guess what happens is Saturday, I sent out a communication saying, I'm confident we can keep going. And then right after that, I got more news, and right after that, I got more news. And so, and thank you, by the way, to Tammy McHale, principal, Dana Reganata, our school nurse, and Gino, and Polly Mitchell too, who worked all day Saturday and all day Sunday with me to get this, to do this. They really put in a lot of time and effort. And what we looked at was, it was the number of cases was one piece, but it was how quickly they were coming one after another, right? Where we could no longer follow where everything was happening from. And the number that we're going to require close contact quarantining, both students and teachers. And we'll see later on, I think it's as many as 15 teachers were out of the high school these last 2 weeks. We simply physically couldn't open the building staff-wise. And I think what I'm going to talk about later on too is that's our biggest challenge, I think, as we move forward in keeping schools open, is that staffing schools is going to be harder than when kids stay home, they stay home. Teachers staying home causes different issues, as you can imagine. So we looked at all those things. We looked at the number of kids being quarantined, which was about 240 at this point in time, the number of teachers who were not going to be there, the number of cases coming so quickly, And we just made the decision that we wanted to close it for 2 weeks, see if this passed. And what this is, if you saw me on my news thing, this was Halloween and social parties and those things. I have no evidence that it's Halloween, but I'm going to tell you that it was Halloween and socializing. Because of the timing, and you could see it coming. You can see the numbers begin to wane now as we get 14 days past Halloween. It's funny because when you start looking at it, not funny, but I guess I learned a lot. And you look at things and we see patterns, and so we see kids' names come across, and we see all these kids with the same activity. It must be the activity. It wasn't the activity. The activities are safe because we're following safeguards. The kids in the similar activities go to the same parties and go to the same social events. And so that's what we really kind of learned. And we know enough about, we're a small enough school district, our administrators know our students well enough. We know who hangs out with whom, who's dating them. So we can start seeing the puzzle fall together there. And so while it was easy to say, this was the X team doing this or that, what we really saw was these kids were at this party, these kids were at this party, and that's how this thing grew. Our hope is that on the 30th we can come back, but we got since we've been here, we found out there's another positive case at the high school. And until we see those cases really wane off, we're going to have to be very cognizant of the fact that until we see that we're confident that bubble has gone, we're going to have to revisit that 30th date. Right now, that's still our goal. But if we continue to get these a fairly steady string of high school cases, I'll then make the call to keep the virtual for maybe another couple of days or maybe another week. But that's something we'll monitor as we go across, and I will be communicating. Coupled with that decision was another difficult decision, which was we have extracurriculars still going on, right? So we have kids who have been involved in things and extracurriculars going on, and whether we let that continue. Specifically, we had girls soccer, field hockey, and football were still in season. Every other sporting team had finished, and all of the clubs and activities were going virtual. They can go function virtually. So it was really those three things. The other one that we'd be looking at would be madrigals too, because madrigals is a different animal altogether, but they're going virtual for right now, but they're going to have to start to come together too. And so what I did, I communicated with the Department of Health. We had 2 local schools, high schools, Cherry Hill and Voorhees Eastern, who both went virtual at the same time. We did bigger spikes than we had. And in Camden County, all of those schools decided we're going to let these kids finish out their seasons because they're going to be isolated. We even put the factor in that if these teams go, they've got to quarantine for 14 days past their last event. I don't know if you know this, girls soccer last week canceled, I think, 2 games, non-conference games, because they didn't want to play against another team to jeopardize their playoffs, right? So they were taking precautionary steps. And we felt, and I'm stealing the words from Dr. Maloche from Cherry Hill. In a world where they have so few positives and support, we had a chance to trust these teams that made it through without breaking down and give them a positive. So I decided I felt that was the right thing to do. I'm sure there are those who disagree, but that ultimately that's the side I came down on. So that's in essence what happened with the high school closing. I'm going to talk a little bit about numbers too, and how some of the things we learned about, like I said, how fast they started coming. Once we see those numbers start flushing like this again, I will make a decision quicker next time, I think. I know I will. So once I start seeing, okay, it was 2, then 3, then 4, then 4, I saw now how that pattern worked. I would make a decision in a different building more quickly than I did the first one. I did learn from that, I will admit that. Any questions about that?
I have a question with regard to the middle school. So, I know the numbers are coming pretty hard on the high school, but the middle school.
Middle school's beginning to pick up a little bit, yes, yeah. And so that's the next one we're looking at. And similar to the high school, we have more quarantining there. At this point in time, close contact tracing within the middle school has only been one student close contact trace in the middle school. It's been 2 staff members, but 1 student. And that's something we consider. Now, as I say that, I'll talk about the world around us is changing too, right? So what something we wouldn't consider as a big deal 10 days ago is a bigger deal today. And so, like I said, decision trigger will be pulled more quickly with the next piece because the middle school numbers did begin to grow, not nearly as quickly as the high school. But we're very aware of how that pattern developing too. We also are aware of some of the social activities of our middle school students because people tell us things, which is good. Once we were supposed to have a public here tonight, right? That was our goal. We had a plan in place, and then the executive order came down. No more than 10 people. Board of Education were exempt from this executive order, so we can still have our meeting. But we felt, just to be prudent, we would hold off on that a little bit. Winter sports. NJSA released today. They're moving winter sports, so you can see what they're doing with winter sports. Basketball's moved to January, swimming, winter track, and then wrestling, the last one coming out in March. They will be limited to 15 events per team, so there's only going to be 15 games. No multi-team events, which would affect probably mostly wrestling and track because they do have quads and they have larger group meets. I don't know if swimming has multiple teams in its meet. They might. Postseason is still being evaluated. One of the things I think they're looking at is saying the NJSA is not going to have postseasons, but if a county wants to have a county tournament, they can do that, but it's not going to be an NJSA event. In the spring of December 11th, they're going to start releasing potential plans for the spring. So we were really worried about, I know a lot of us were worried about winter sports coming up, giving the numbers rise. So that's something that's being pushed off now until January, so January at the earliest, and then most of them are going to hit in February. Any questions about that? And when this gets posted tomorrow, that link is active to the actual press release by the NJSA. And here's, I feel like Governor Murphy. Here's our daily COVID numbers, I think. By the way, he's having a presser tomorrow at noon, which I'm sure will be interesting. I think it's at noon. Is it noon or 1, Mike?
Changes it.
So here's a real quick snapshot. We've had 37 cases, 33 were the last, I'm calling them active because the last 14 days, right? That's the magic number of days. And here's the breakdown by students. So 17 at the high school, 5 at the middle school, 3 virtual students, 1 Central and 1 Tatum. Central and Tatum were today. And the 5 in the middle school all came, that's what you're talking about, they all came right away. So if we continue to see the middle school kids rolling in like this, then we'll make an action based on that. Staff members, we have 2 at the middle school, we have 3 at Lizzie Haddon, and we have 1 now at Tatum. So that's the overall number. This is kind of the stuff that we look at when we start making decisions on what we're going to do, right? So you can see that these are the number of kids home based on being positive, the top number here. And then this is the number that we have staying home because we decided they were close contacts. And you can see the high school is 147. And the middle school is 18. That's because I said there was only 1 contact traced kid in the middle school. And the 2 teachers had some interaction with kids. So that's why that number is so low. But all it's going to take is 2 more cases, maybe that we had a contact trace, and that number would jump relatively quickly. You can see that the elementary schools have been doing very well. And then quarantined personal contact exposure or travel. So these are people who have family members exposed, or people at work where they traveled. And you can see the high school, once again, has a pretty large number. Middle school, so look at that jump in the middle school between the contacts outside of school, quarantining outside of school. That's town youth sports and some other things like that. So that's a number we're looking at very closely, saying, okay, when that starts to really grow, we've got to be aware that that's spreading quickly and that's going to be coming into the schools. So that's one of the ones we're watching as well. And here's our totals. And I think our totals tell the story of why the high school is closed and not anyone else yet, right? So you look at those high school numbers, 277 students are not in school right now. None of them are. 200 would not have been in school because of quarantining on one level. 9 staff members, and then the 15 next to that there are 6 high school teachers who teach virtually all the time because they're teaching virtually. So 15 staff members, actually, out of the 9, they're not all teachers, they're all other staff members, but in the classroom, 13 of those people in the class who have been in classrooms wouldn't be in school. This is combined with the fact that we've had several maternity leaves or family leaves, not maternity leaves, those people are covering on people's classes, so they're already short-staffed. So it became a pressure on the staff to even cover the building, which was a component of why we closed the school. Now you look at the middle school. I mean, the high school is bigger than middle school. You see those middle school teacher numbers jump too. So once again, I said earlier, staffing is as big a concern as other aspects of this, right? And you can see that 84 growing up there in the middle school. They're the numbers we're really watching closely, right? So if we get if we go home tomorrow, come in tomorrow, and we start getting 3 and 4 middle school cases, we'll start looking at the contact tracing and seeing how these numbers play out. In addition to that, I'll get to this in a second. And you can see the Tatum, the elementary school numbers, once again, are very low. All that being said, this is a current state of the region, right? So we've gone orange as in my world. And I am not a numbers person. I make that joke all the time. I sit at my computer reading numbers of cases in New Jersey. I hit refresh all the time to see every time someone else gets a positive test. And really have been paying a lot of attention to this. These numbers are to the fact, these numbers affect what we do with these numbers, right? I mean, technically, I'm looking at what's happening in my schools and making that decision based on that. But these numbers make me have to look at those school numbers differently, which is one of the complications we're dealing with now. 1 o'clock tomorrow, we have an emergency meeting with the county superintendents and the Department of Health to go over what this means to us and how we should adjust our thinking on that point of view. So that's more information I'll have tomorrow about some of these things that we're looking at, some of these decisions and where we should go. Our goal is obviously to keep schools open, but the safety for our staff, the safety for our students, the safety for our families who have to deal with these things, they're going to be hard decisions. I think I think the schools, I mean, if you follow today, the governor made a comment that schools are safe, and I believe that to be the case. The NJA has a reply to that we are putting some unnecessary risk. So that's going on the state level. I believe our schools are safe, but when I see things start to increase, like the number of high school kids, now the middle school kids are growing, we have to wonder, we have to also keep caution in mind. And so there's some of the decisions and how we're going to be making those decisions over the next, unfortunately, probably several months, right? I'm going to say several days, several months, but that's where we are. That's the thought process. I'm hoping not to have to close another building, but I think it's probably likely that may happen in the future. Hopefully not, if this wave swells, calms down, but that's just what's happening around the region. Any questions about that?
I just have a comment about the holidays coming up, college family members coming home. Can we, I know it's permissible, but just letting people know, if a college student comes home, you can opt to quarantine your students for 2 weeks after that, so we're not all coming back to the school if they were exposed.
Yes. So what you're saying is, if someone says, because my college, I'm going to quarantine my high school or my element, they absolutely can. The other factor I put in this thing was the high school, because the numbers are rising, had 70 kids switch to full virtual, right? So that on top of those 244, there's another 70 kids. So you're missing 40% of the school are already out, along with the teachers. But that's an excellent point, that people, families can be proactive here if they do think someone is exposed. First of all, I would implore anyone listening, if you get a positive test, please notify the school. I think we're doing very well with that. But that's really important. The sooner we know, the faster we react. And if people are not feeling well, we've got to stay home. And if people are exposed to someone, I mean, if we look at this as a community responsibility and we bite the bullet a little bit and keep keep our own children home if we think they're exposed, we are benefiting the community. And that would be what we'd ask someone else to do for your child, right? So that helps each other out. It was something that it almost became white noise through September, October, right? This whole thing. It's no longer white noise. I think you heard Danny say the high school students saw this as a wake-up call. They realized what was going on now. So hopefully that'll carry on as well.
All right.
Thank you.
I think we've drilled the fact that we want people to be thinking about. I think people are thinking differently about COVID and about the spread and the risks. I debated I talked to a couple of board members about this. Just generally, when we sit on the boards, you put your own personal situation, your own children, your own family situation on hold, and you make the decisions for the greater good. I kind of offer. I just wanted to offer like my personal story because I'm not shy about it, and people know. I have a palliative cancer, which means that they're buying me as much time as possible with medicine and surgeries and stuff like that. And I've been open about it, but it's sort of representing other families in town who are in the same situation. Either they're living with or they have family members that on the outside look like you and I that would be healthy, but may have different health issues. They may be poor in health without it being obvious that they're poor in health. So it's a distinct fear that I don't think we all want to wear on our sleeves. But as representatives of the community, I thought it's worth telling people, people look healthy and they don't necessarily want to lead with their fears or lead with their sickness, but it does exist in and around town. And we're trying to send these messages, and we don't want to be preachy, and we don't want to be, Thanksgiving is sacred, and in many cases, people have elderly family that they want to see. You don't have an unlimited number of holidays in your lifetime, so you want to make the most of them. But the kids are getting it a little bit more deeply, and I just think knowing that your neighbors, and not me necessarily, but your neighbors that you don't know that are dealing with this, Jamie wrote it and Colleen wrote that we really are close to the end. I mean, we have these two fantastic vaccines that we're getting up to produce, but if we could just collectively work with each other to try to make better, more conservative decisions and prevent us from going like this hypercritical, these charts. But you're going to help. You're going to help people that are really compromised, and it's the elderly, but it's also kids' parents and some kids that aren't going to be walking around talking about what they have to deal with and what medicines they're on. But it's in the town, and I think it's worth obviously we're reiterating it. We don't want to exhaust it, but we do want to remind it and make it personal. That was my only comment. That's a little bit personal, but and if anyone else, I just didn't.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. It's what it seems like a harmless party with kids, which is normal behavior, and kids that might not have they have a huge percentage chance of not getting it or completely recovering from it. It seems harmless, but thank you for sharing. And I have a personal story because what's harmless in one family is very much not harmless in another.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to open the floor up to public comment. I'll ask Rob to switch us over to the screen, which helps navigate the call-in procedures. While we're doing that, I'll remind you, when you dial the number and the number on the screen and the meeting number, if you would please select *6 and that will mute your phone. It's also important that you follow along in the meeting on your phone and not on your device. The broadcast is delayed, and when we call on you, you won't know it for 20 seconds or 30 seconds because of the delay. So when you're on the phone, *6 to mute, and follow the meeting on your phone, not your device. Just mute your device so we don't get the feedback and you're at real time. And then we will, we'll be able to call, we'll be able to identify you to say your comments. We have a 3-minute limit on the comments, and we have, I will give your area code and last 2 digits of your number, and then we would ask you to just say your name and what street you live on, not necessarily, not the house number. That's just a part of our policy, and we'll wait to see if we.
What if they're not in our town? Do they just give their town?
There's actually I don't think we have to listen to them. I actually think there's a little bit of truth in what I say. I think your community has a right, and I think the reason for that is that you could spread it to, should a local issue take on a national.
Yeah, I wonder why I just asked the question.
Yeah, thank you. We're wondering too. Okay, we've got a caller, which is area code 617 ending in 89. *6, it seems like you're muted. Yeah, there you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Who's this?
Hi, this is Bethany Lau. I'm on Linden Avenue,
Thank you, Stephanie.
and I just want to let you know that I really appreciate you all. I really appreciate Superintendent Klaus and all the work he's done on all these reports and keeping track of the numbers and the responsible decisions he's made about the high school and keeping track of parties and all that. That's a lot. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the work that he and all the teachers and the staff and the board have done in the last, few weeks to deal with all of this going on. This is really an unprecedented situation in our town and really all over the state and the country. And I just really wanted you to know that you guys talked about appreciation earlier, but you are appreciated. So I just wanted to end with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a great day.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. That may be our only call. We'll do another couple of seconds.
It is the second night of the NBA draft.
I think we could go to draft.
Those G Leagues don't fill out themselves.
All right. We'll close the public comment session in our meeting, section of our meeting. And we'll begin to read through the approvals. We'll start with governance. We're going to accept our monthly HIB vandalism and violence report, submitted by Gina Priolo. Our fire and safety drill report. We have a first reading of policy 0164.6, and we have 17 policies for a second reading. We're approving the Department of Education school self-assessment, determining grades, the anti-bullying bill right at that, for all 5 schools in our district. Am I going to? Yes, that is it. Okay.
Should this have the scores on there?
Is it a link?
Approval of MJ.
You're asking if it should?
Well, it says approval of the self-assessment determining grades under,
They're linked on our agenda.
oh, they're linked in the agenda?
I
Okay, thanks.
just pass out a hard copy.
I just didn't have the link. I just wanted to, thank you.
They were reviewed.
Motion, the governance section, number 1.
So moved.
David moves,
Second.
Tom seconds, discussion.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
I just wanted to comment and ask a question about under governance, the monthly HIB vandalism and violence report. First, it's the first time that I've seen it in this format. I don't know if it's always been maintained in this format, but I love it. I love the details. It just provides a good snapshot. So wanted to thank whichever administrator maintains that or is responsible for it or for sharing it. Finally, it looks great. Thank you.
Dr. Priola?
Second thing,
You're welcome.
I know from prior HIB private meetings that we have had to deal with individual students in the past. I just wanted to confirm with the administration that even if these incidences meet the requirements for HIB, or even if they don't, that the parents of the perpetrator or alleged aggressor, as well as the victim, are notified, because it still may need addressing, even if it's not HIB, and certainly even if it is. I know in the past, we had some parents who said they found out about it maybe after the effect, and I realize there's a whole process that happens. I'm not at all implying that it's happening late. I just want to make sure that parents are still being notified, unless an administrator is going to tell me if it's not HIB, then it doesn't go any further. But I'm hopeful that they're still notified.
They are.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Any other questions, comments on these policies that we did discuss some of them?
I have one question on
Shoot.
01646. On 3A, it talks about, it says, where a remote public meeting is held by audio and video, the public shall also have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in both audio and video capacities. And I question the and video capacities.
We had a whole discussion about that because I think a couple of us read it that way. I think it just, they have the ability to see it on YouTube and call in on the phone.
I thought that was perhaps the spirit of it, but it's saying if it's being held by audio and video, that's kind of established in the first line. So that's it's being projected in video, because otherwise it wouldn't be held in video if it was only an all audio meeting. So the fact that it says they will have the opportunity to participate in both audio and video, which I just thought that it said something other than what was probably meant. If you're okay with the language, that's
Yeah,
fine, but
I think we're okay with it because you can technically do a remote meeting without broadcasting video. And when the public does participate, I mean, it is just through audio. We see their number up there. We think it meets it. I don't know, maybe if we get challenged on it, but I think we meet the spirit of it.
What do we say? What do we, it's okay. I mean, I agree. I don't know.
Well, and I think because they're watching, I mean, are they participating by watching it on YouTube?
Does this, so what is the crux? Does
So
this
I
give them the right to
think
be
it's
seen physically?
well, it's the way that I read it first. Because the first line specifically says that it's being held with audio and video. So it's already establishing that the video is there. And then the second line says that the public has the opportunity to participate in audio and video. It's not that big a deal for me. I read it the first time and I said, oh, we don't do that. I reread it and I thought, well, I understand what the spirit of this probably is, but
Well, then look at 4, Linda, because that says like individuals giving sworn testimony
Yep.
shall appear on video,
Yes.
and that kind of made us feel like 3 meant what we're doing
Okay.
is sufficient.
I can be okay with that.
All right, any other comments, questions? Mike, call roll.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Ms. Hoagirl,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes on everything but D16. No on D16.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
President Sangillo.
Yes. Okay, moving to curriculum and special ed, we're approving conferences, we're resolving in Gloucester County Special Services School District and Board of Ed on behalf of a Christ the King student. And we're resoluting to allow, or to choosing Kelly to provide Sky Yoga for preschoolers. Motion,
Motion.
Linda,
Second.
David, discussion? Mike?
Ms. Hoagirl,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
President Sangillo.
Yes. Okay, we're approving the personnel changes. We're approving to have Kathleen work additional hours. Motion,
Motion.
Jamie,
Second.
Lynn. Any questions, discussion?
One comment, we have a retirement, I'm sure you saw it on there. Dennis Hassan, I don't know how long he's been here, it's been a long time, I probably should have looked that up. Just absolutely a staple in the middle school math department, an excellent teacher, a good person, who cared about kids, and still cares about kids. And it's going to be weird walking down that hallway, not seeing him in the hallway there. I know that. Like I said, he's been there a long time. He's a good man. We wish him well. And there's going to be a hard time replacing Dennis. I know that for sure. So we wish Dennis well. We'll certainly miss him.
Yeah, on that, I'd just like to say also, Tommy has Mr. Hassan this year, and within the first week, he's like, Tommy loves math, but Mr. Hassan's his favorite math teacher, loves him, and so he's going to be very missed, especially given this year, if you can manage to be a favorite math teacher during the pandemic, I think it says a lot.
Yes.
Attendance great. That's a winemaker. Yeah. Good luck, Mr. Aggie, in your future endeavors. Mike, you want to call roll?
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hoagirl,
Yes.
President Sangillo.
Yes. Okay, business and finance recommendations. We're approving a tuition reimbursement for Amy Heslin. We're approving the RFP solutions to install the emergency notification system that Susan referenced in her update. And we're approving the payment of our bills. Motion,
Motion.
Linda,
Second.
David. Discussion? Michael,
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hoagirl,
Yes.
President Sangillo.
yes, with a forgotten asterisk to say before, again, this is this RFP, so this all came to pass, the security, because Sandy Horowitz, she acquired this grant for us, and her work is making our students safer by a great measure. So thank you, Dr. Horowitz, and, or no, sorry, you got extra education credit there. Thank you, Sandy Horowitz. Again, thank you. It's fantastic if we can approve this and get this installed as soon as possible. Approval of meeting minutes, October 22nd, October 29th, October 29th executive. Motion,
So moved.
Tom,
Second.
Jamie seconds it. Any discussion? Mike?
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kuttner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogerl,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
President Sangelo.
Yes. Board, do we have items for future consideration? Anyone? Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion to go back to executive session for negotiations and contracts.
Thanks, David. We're going to go into exec now, so we're going to shut down the public meeting. We'll come back into public session to adjourn, but no business will be conducted. No meaningful discussions, because we're not going to broadcast, and we'll get our exec session back online for Susan and Heather.
Using